Okay, so it's my pleasure at this point to introduce Fred Teng. Fred is the president of the America-China Public Affairs Institute and a longtime supporter of East-West's work to improve U.S.-China relations. As you know, we work a lot with Chinese in cyber, but also in several other areas, including we sponsor a party-to-party dialogue between the U.S. Democratic and Republican parties and the Chinese Communist Party, and also, in particular, with the help of Admiral Owens, who spoke earlier, a military-to-military dialogue. So Fred has been in the middle of all these things and has been a great influence and an action-oriented guy who gets things to actually happen on those fronts. So, Fred, thanks so much for being here this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. I'm here to introduce our speaker, Andy Purdy. Andy joined Huawei Technology USA as the Chief Security Officer in July of 2012. He oversees Huawei USA's cybersecurity assurance strategy and system and supports the global security system adopted by all the company's business groups and departments. Before joining Huawei USA, Andy worked as Chief Cybersecurity Strategist for Computer Science Corporation. He was also a member of the White House staff team that helped draft the U.S. national strategy to secure cyberspace in 2003. He later went to the Department of Homeland Security to help form and launch the National Cybersecurity Division and the U.S. Computer Emergency Readiness Team. Actually, Andy had quite a stellar career in government and especially in the cyberspace. I have his bio this long, and he crossed out most of it. So at the end, I do want to add that he also is a very interesting person. He also served 5 years in the network news, television news, including NBC and CBS. Andy Purdy.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's great to see so many friendly faces that I worked with in government internationally and with other representatives from your organizations around the world. We have a tremendous opportunity here, and we're very grateful that EWI has brought us together. Despite our differences, I think we recognize that we have common cause and that together we can and must try to drive some real progress in cyberspace. We recognize that mankind has received many benefits from information and communications technology, ICT. But there are many benefits that lie ahead. That innovation can bring our citizens tremendous benefits that we have yet not even begun to experience. We also have common cause that we're aware that we are dependent on ICT for our national security, our public safety and law enforcement, our economic well-being, the privacy of our individuals and our data and our organizations. We also have a common cause that we're increasingly at risk. Our networks and systems are vulnerable, and it is essential that we work together to manage that risk, to help protect us, that which we depend on, and to ensure that we can receive the benefits of ICT. We have come to believe that we must all, and that it's critical that we work together, governments, companies, private organizations, to address the major cyber issues we face. There is far too much at stake for us to fail to act. And I think failing to act is one of the things that characterizes discussion in cyberspace. There's too much talk, there's too little action. We haven't focused on identifying the priorities for collaboration. We haven't recognized that it's essential that organizations, whether government or private, whether multilateral or individual, need goals, objectives, and milestones to drive progress. There need to be requirements that need to be met. There needs to be verification and accountability to ensure that they are in fact met. I marvel that some of the major governments of the world, some of the major corporations, have demonstrated a lack of commitment to really trying to manage the risk in cyberspace. That the failures that they experience are often due to the lack of ensuring that they track and measure success and failure, that they do not have measures in place for accountability and verification, and that legislatures need to play their role. It's not enough to consider legislation or regulation. There needs to be oversight of what governments are doing, particularly when you're talking about the kind of public-private partnership that's essential. By way of context, I've been at Huawei a little over 3 years. We have worked on, and we have on the table outside, a compendium of security white papers that we worked on to try to help promote discussion. 2012 about the nature of the cyber threat. 2013 about Huawei's global assurance program. Not that we have the gold standard of an assurance program, but we want to be transparent about what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and facilitate dialogue so that we can all improve. And 2014, the Top 100 document, which recognizes that those who buy ICT are not well enough informed about what they should ask of or require from their vendors and suppliers. We're in 170 countries. We have some wonderful examples where our buyers are asking the right questions, but we have to make it easier for people around the world to ask the right questions. Because fundamentally, the greatest incentive to drive more progress, and it's reflected in the EWI Breakthrough Group effort, is that private companies want to sell their services and their products. And so we need to take advantage of that incentive to drive more secure products and services. Given the legitimate security concerns that we all have, the risks that we all face, we must not be deterred from pursuing collaboration and agreement by the fact that some address security concerns in ways we don't like. Some even take measures that are seen by some as trade barriers, only ostensibly in the name of security. We, in these efforts of these breakthrough groups under the leadership of EWI, are embarked on a journey. It has an uncertain direction and uncertain fate. No one is in charge of our efforts to work together for common cause. No one has designated us as the ones who shall carry on with resolve. No one has chosen EWI to lead this effort. We don't know who will lead us to success at the end of our efforts, or whether our organizations and the individuals represented here will be there. But we are here now. We will be here tomorrow. EWI is leading and coordinating our efforts to move forward. We enthusiastically support their leadership at this stage and embrace the opportunity this represents. And we must find others of like mind to make sure we work together to drive the progress that we need. Because we can't just have good meetings. We can't just have the same meeting over and over again. So EWI has taken a great approach to global cooperation in cyberspace through the initiative and this summit. It's so valuable they've brought us together, government and private stakeholders, on a number of very important issues. Hopefully we can work together and with others not here towards serious discussions and eventual agreement on some of the most important issues we face. I was struck by the leadership that Tom Patterson of Unisys is showing with his breakthrough group on critical infrastructure, because that is a key area. And we can learn from some of the capacity building efforts that have been done internationally to try to drive effective risk management for critical infrastructure. So regarding the breakthrough group on global availability and use of secure products, although Scott Charney gave some very excellent remarks earlier today, the fact is that too little attention has been focused on products and services that are inputs to and building blocks of the systems and networks we rely on for our national security, our economic well-being, our public safety and law enforcement, and the privacy of our individual and organizational data. Quite significantly, the work of this breakthrough group has been informed by a proactive engagement with key stakeholders, including through use of an online survey, discussions at the Berlin Summit, and last year and this year. In the breakthrough group, as Angela McKay of Microsoft will say, we've decided to extend the survey, and we want to encourage folks to complete the survey to help promote the use and availability of secure products. The group is focused on creating 3 deliverables: a set of principles of what a level playing field should look like, a compendium of standards and best practices that folks can refer to in making their decisions, and suggestions for buyers about how they can leverage their purchasing power to drive more secure products and services. At the Berlin Summit, Huawei released our Top 100 document that identifies in 11 categories of requirements the 100 questions that the buyers of ICT might consider asking of or requiring from their potential suppliers and providers. The work of this breakthrough group is hopefully going to help evolve that. Hopefully individual sectors will take that document, because there's nothing magic about it, but it's trying to help get the buyers of ICT to understand better what their security requirements are or should be, what kind of standards and best practices they should require from those they're purchasing from. We believe that the 3 deliverables from this breakthrough group is going to help create a framework that governments and private organizations can enrich and hopefully during the mobilization phase coming out of the summit agree to follow in their procurement and their use of products and services. As we conduct and complete the work and meetings of the summit, let us resolve to move forward together and with other like-minded stakeholders around the world, motivated by our common cause, to drive real progress on the cyber issues that we face. The citizens of the world who can benefit even more from ICT, what ICT can make possible for them, deserve nothing less. Thank you.
We have about 8 minutes for question and answer. Please just raise your hand. Once you're recognized, identify yourself and state your question.
And if the question is particularly difficult, we will be out of time.
Oh, the microphones are over there. Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Thanks, Sandy. I really would like to underscore something that you said and probably ask you to elaborate a little bit on it, and that's this proposition that you marvel at the lack of commitment of some leading corporations and some governments to get on and get the job done. I guess by way of quick comment, we see a large amount of posturing by certain governments about what needs to be done, but few breakthroughs towards the result that some of them are claiming. But can you say a little bit more about the texture of the relationship between Huawei and the Chinese government in this environment of pushing to get things done? So the East West Institute, for example, would probably find it valuable to find other leading corporations in China or in other major powers such as Russia to participate in our work, but we don't have a sort of what you might call a long list of such corporations. So could you just elaborate on that a little?
Well, there are significant discussions among the U.S. trade associations, both with the U.S. government and with the Chinese government, and discussions among American companies and other companies, including Huawei, that want to do business in China on the issue of what are reasonable security requirements that need to be in place to address the real risks, the real vulnerabilities that we all face. My understanding from the U.S. government is that they're actively involved as part of these discussions. I'm glad that the private sector is involved because just as in this EWI, these various breakthrough group efforts, the private sector needs to help lead on all these major issues because the information the private sector has to help formulate standards and best practices, such as the Open Trusted Technology Forum created the Trusted Technology Provider Standard of the Open Group that was just recognized by ISO for supply chain. That private sector-led effort that helps lead the standards that can be objectively conformed by independent third parties, that's the kind of thing that is a very important, very legitimate security requirement. And you take some of the factors that Scott Charney talked about to add to trust, we have the makings for some things that can create a level playing field that allows us to get the benefits of innovation, allows our companies to compete freely in the world, and address the risks that we all recognize and we all face.
Thank you. Andy, you know, I also look at when they asked me to introduce you, and I said Huawei and then you, and I look at your records in government and what you have done for the U.S. on cybersecurity issue. I was just wondering, how did you join Huawei, and how did Huawei find you, and how did this happen? Since you've been here 3 years already, so it's not that something just happened yesterday.
Well, I was recruited by John Suffolk, the former CIO of the UK government, a little over 3 years ago. And he told me about his commitment, about the leadership of Huawei's commitment to a global assurance program that builds trust and helps meet the needs of our customers. And he told me about these white papers that we were going to write, where we would talk openly and objectively about the threat. I've heard that one of the American intelligence agencies read our threat paper and thought it was really excellent. Our global assurance program, where we laid out the factors, a lot of which are reflected in the top 100 document. We have trouble learning lessons. So I became convinced that the leadership of Huawei was committed to trying to contribute as a good cyber citizen globally to helping to manage the risk that the world faces and that we can help bring technology to the world. And some of the lessons that we learned, I struggle and watch in meetings of private sector organizations in the US and elsewhere around the world, that people fail to realize that there's some fundamental things that you need to do. We do it. We're not perfect. We have an organizational commitment to security and privacy at the top of the company. We have a global governance structure made up of the leads of all the business groups, the general counsel, the cybersecurity lead, all the business groups, meets quarterly, and that there are requirements that have been developed for creating the products and overseeing the products. And those requirements are departmental requirements, and then on the individual people within those departments, their performance requirements, they have to meet the goals. So you have requirements, you have goals, you have goals, objectives, and milestones that you have to meet. But fundamentally, critically important, and you see in the survey results for the breakthrough group, the importance of verification and accountability. We have internal folks evaluating whether or not we meet our requirements. And then it's reported up to the leadership of the company as to where we're falling short and how we have to be improved. There's no magic to it, but if you don't hold folks accountable, if you don't demonstrate that you care about what your requirements are to meet the commitment you and an organization has made, you are giving empty promises, you are giving empty commitments. And I see that with some of the governments in the world where they are not stepping up and they're not making sure there's accountability so they drive real progress. Sometimes we have bumps along the road, but we need those systems in place so we can drive real progress.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, for me, when I look at the media, there's still skepticism of Huawei. So if there's no questions, that means, Andy, you convince everyone here. If you do, even if there's a skepticism, I invite you to ask, a question of Andy.
Well, let me suggest a thought. One of the things that we've learned, and what strikes me, is there are countervailing forces that don't want to raise the bar on cybersecurity. There are forces that do not want to have more secure products and services. And so when I advocate for the kinds of processes we follow, it's really because I'm an American, frankly. And I want America to be safer. And I recognize what the senior leaders in government in the US recognize, not necessarily at the political level, but the leaders of our military, the leaders of our Department of Homeland Security. They recognize that we are at risk, that we are vulnerable, and that we need to do more and do something about it. And so some of the efforts like the Open Group effort, some of the efforts like supporting the NIST cybersecurity framework, which is a great risk analytic tool, that we need to do more given the global supply chain and the benefits that flow from it. Not to focus on particular country of origin, not to focus on particular companies, but to make sure we're assessing the risk and independently evaluating the risk so we can all be safer. And so by advocating that, yes, it will help Huawei in the end because we believe that we can be competitive, not just in quality and innovation, but security. But we have to do more as individual nations, as a global community, to better understand the risk and manage the risk so we can protect our citizens and give them the benefit that come from innovation and ICT.
I also want to add that Andy is also the global head for East-West Institute's Global Cooperation in Cybersecurity Initiative. And
the leader for Huawei's participation in EWI, yes.
I think our time is almost up, so I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks very much, Andy and Fred. Great, thanks, appreciate it. Good. I would just say on the skepticism point, I mean, one of the amazing things that Huawei has gone through successfully in the UK was a very extensive, several-year evaluation by the UK government of the technology, very independently done, and they came through with flying colors. So a place where there was skepticism is now completely, the technology is completely accepted there from a standpoint of security, as well as performance and cost. So that's one of the big success stories, I think, of the kind of transparency approach that the company has been taking on. And it's just amazing that it just takes time for that news to get around, I guess, is the best we can say.